And I think, I think we're live. Can't even tell. This is the worst thing about doing this stuff. So anyway, look, welcome back. This is not a conversation about whether AI will change work. I think we all agreed it already has. This really is a conversation about whether your organization will be on the right side of that change. So this is a little bit of a series that we're running through. There's 12 steps in, there's 12 modules in this series. This is the second series. If you want to watch the first one, you can go back and watch that. So I'm now going to introduce the three people who are fabulous, basically people that have been on really responsible in driving the whole human intelligence conversation forward. So I'm going to introduce them to the stage one at a time this time. The first one is our fabulous Danielle Handley, who is a C-suite executive who has led customer digital and AI transformations at some of Australia's biggest organizations, companies like Bupa and IAG. In fact, Danielle's been, we were talking about this earlier with my partner, a fabulous supporter of ours for many years, and has raised thousands and thousands of dollars through the Meet Magica connection. So Danielle, welcome to the screen. I better change the layout because I want to make sure that we can fit everybody in. Okay, and the next person we're going to bring in, can you welcome Danielle? How are you? How's your week been?
Good, excellent. I'm excited for this conversation. So let's
it's going to be a lot of fun. And I've just lost my screen. Okay, the next person is Rebecca. Now, Rebecca is, if you don't know, she's the architect of quantum fusion, which is a framework that's built for the moment strategy, culture, and technology stop being separate functions and have to move as one. So, Rebecca, I'm going to introduce you to the screen. Also, welcome. How's your week been?
Thank you, Carl. I've had a great week. Very excited for this conversation. So thanks for having me.
No, pleasure. This is really important. I think what we've got here is something really special because there's a lot of people out there that do not know what to do with the whole human side of AI. As Matthew says, AI transformation is not a tech transformation; it's a human transformation. So, with that, I'm going to add Matthew Byrne, who is the adjunct faculty member and program director for AGSM at the UNSW Business School. He's also the author and custodian of this whole HI program. So he's coached and mentored over 800 business leaders on the business school floor, and he's the mind and literally behind the whole HI accreditation program, which we have produced through Meet Magic. So Matthew, welcome to the. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excellent. We just had 25 people go through another experience around HI and loving it. So it's great to see it get traction and more people joining the conversation, and 10,000 people watching the first podcast.
Yes, well, honestly, just incredible. I looked at the stats the other day. So the first one we did last week, it's obviously resonating with people. I mean, have you had some conversations this week about what we did, because people are talking about it? Yeah. Okay.
Excellent.
Drop that. Yeah. So look, this is a nice awkward moment. I think everyone watching, you've all heard the intro. I think you know the stakes. I think last week we talked about the trust gap and the social license to operate. So this week, really, we're going to be diving into module 2 of the whole human intelligence accreditation program, which is all around human-centric AI design. Now, obviously, the three heavy hitters here on the screen are going to be on buzzers, because the rules of the game is that we're going to ask 3 questions. And those 3 questions are really what every CEO and every CPO, they should be losing sleep over this when it comes to designing AI, because we know the failure rates of AI right now are massive. So the guests are they've got 2 minutes to answer the questions and drop really a truth bomb or something from their unique vantage point. So no waffle, no corporate bingo, just a lot of good insights that you can use. And at the end of the show, or end of the 30 minutes, the audience can then vote on which answer has changed their mind. So are we all good with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good. So with that, I'm going to add the first thing to the screen. Can we all see the question there? Okay. So I think this first one is going to be for Rebecca. Now, let me try and give you a bit of analogy on this first question. So imagine, how would we frame this? Imagine you're hiring a brilliant personal assistant, and instead of them doing your expenses, you tell them to make all the decisions, and you just sign the checks blindly. I know there's people that actually do that. So that's not what we call augmentation. That's really abdicating your responsibilities in your work. So we're deploying now tools that actually sideline human judgment instead of actually sharpening it. So how do we design AI workflows that augment rather than replace the human in the loop? Now, I think we're going Danielle's angle first. Sorry, Rebecca. I think I got that wrong way around. So Danielle, the first question really is for you. How do we design the AI workflows that augment rather than replace?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, often I see that there's perhaps a bit of a disconnect between how there's a top-down deployment versus the bottom-up workflow integration. I fear organizations are often looking at their executive dashboard rather than what the teams are actually doing on the ground. And AI is brought in to solve a cost or an efficiency problem at a macro level rather than addressing those micro frictions. And if I come back to your analogy, Carl, about the decision making and abdicating sort of the decision making, it takes me back to perhaps that skit from the Office TV series, which some might remember, where I think it was super frustrating because the computer kept saying no. So the computer says no, says no. And that's what I worry about, like, because if we focus the AI tooling on sort of the judgment and the logic behind the judgment and then point it at decision making, our teams will lose all ability for discretion and the right judgment calls when it really matters. And maybe if I apply it to perhaps two customer experiences, I think you really want to point AI at the process and augment the human capability with making the process most efficient. So take a claim, for an example, where you still want empathy and the human touch where it matters most, but you want all the steps that allow for a well-structured claim file to be automated, presented, and you want that looking 100% accurate so that an assessor can apply judgment where it matters most. And the same in health, where I think it's even more important that the logic and the judgment, the decision-making can be explained and resonates, but equally the pathway to get there to the claim is most efficient. So there's a couple of examples, but ultimately I think in conclusion, I think the key principle is to ensure that you really discover and analyze the moments where someone is most vulnerable and keep the human activity there and augment everywhere else.
So that's from a data and a transformation reality, really. So what you're saying really is when AI fails, it's designed for executives instead of the people who use it every day, which I think is
that's where I think is a key disconnect.
Really the summary. So Rebecca, let me reset the clock. Thank you, Danielle, for that. I'm going to reset the clock for 2 minutes. So Rebecca, from Quantum Fuse, from a purpose and strength perspective, same question.
Sure. Yep. So here's how I would actually redesign a workflow. What I would actually start with is, what is the problem that you're solving? Not so much where can we use AI, but what are we actually trying to fix, or what value are we trying to create, which should always align back to your business strategy, right? And then once you kind of work that through, the key is then to bring the people doing the work today and have them help redesign it with them. And asking them where judgment actually matters, where a person needs to make a call, or where there is high risk or low risk, and where they still feel like they matter in the whole outcome. That's really, really critical in regards to ensuring people are connected with the redesign as it's built. And I think what's really critical here at the moment is it won't be perfect the first time, and I think that's okay. So treating it as a step change, not like a final, finished redesign, keeping the person in the loop as you go, is what is actually going to help build the trust in the tool and the outputs of the tool and the business along the way. And I think what is also really, really critical, and IKEA, I'm not going to go through the example because I think probably everyone's seen it on LinkedIn at the moment, but by the time like the workflow is redesigned, and then eventually if it is to replace or change someone's role, that shouldn't be a surprise. So where the people, people and culture, strategy and technology, if they're really working together as one kind of operating model, the personal development plan conversations should be happening as those redesigns are happening, and the discussion about what skills a person needs, or what interests them from the strengths perspective. Yeah, those conversations should have already started well before the changes are made. So
it's so beautiful. It's almost like you're saying that you're redesigning the work so people can embrace AI instead of fearing it.
Absolutely. And playing to their strengths, and those strengths might not necessarily be in the role that they're doing today, and that's okay. Having the transparency and good conversation about that, and helping people with that succession planning is really key.
It's beautiful. So Matthew, same question, I guess, coming from you as the leader of the Human Intelligence Leadership and Reality theme. How do you design a workflow that augments rather than replaces? And this is going to be fascinating to hear your insights into this after 1,000 case studies.
Look, very simply, if I take that Danielle's and Rebecca's contribution into account, right? It is both are right, and the only question is who's doing the work. And I speak to so many executives who are trying to solve the problem of workflow redesign, when really they should be the problem finder rather than the problem solver. And they need to go out and find a problem saying this area needs to redesign, and then allow the people to actually redesign it. And I don't know about you, but when somebody else is redesigning my job, I don't feel, and I'm not included in that, I will feel quite disenfranchised and quite excluded. And in my personal values system, inclusion is really important. And so if your employees value inclusion, they will feel that they don't matter anymore. And then that affects the whole human dignity side, and other people are making those decisions for me. And so if your goal is to get rid of a lot of people, then that's the right way to go. Don't tell them, just get rid of them and get AI to redesign everything, right? We know now that 55% of CEOs are regretting that decision now, and because it's not working for them, and it's cost them more money than they thought before. And we're now in this strange era where CEOs are starting to say that humans are actually cheaper than AI. And does that help us either, right? Because now we're being commoditized as a cheaper workforce than artificial intelligence, when really what we should be is working on AI and working with AI in order to find more value.
That is 2 minutes on the dot, and
yes,
amazing work. I mean, that's, you see, if I don't put any limit on Matthew, he'll just talk forever, and
yes,
because he can. So really, in summary, then, what we're really doing as companies is we're designing for the dashboard, we're spiking cognitive load, and we're turning our people into robots. Brilliant. Yes. So let's reset the clocks. So question number. Let me just get rid of question number 1 and bring up question number 2. Okay. Can we all see that? So question number 2 is, what happens to the workforce trust when AI is deployed without user-centric design? And I'm going to give you another bit of analogy, because I like to give analogies just so we can get started. So if you basically want a musician to write, I don't know, a masterpiece, you don't force them to use a broken instrument that they've never seen, and punish them when the music sounds terrible. And I think right now we're actually dropping AI on our people without asking them how they actually work. And what happens to workforce trust when AI is deployed without that user-centric design, I mean, this is the question. So, are you a musician with an instrument you've never played before? And the question is, what happens to the workforce trust when we're doing that? So, I'm going to start with Rebecca first. So, your answer. 2 minutes.
Yeah. Thank you, Carl. So I might ask maybe the audience if they want to put some thumbs up and comments as I kind of talk through. But I'll give you a few examples of maybe what you're seeing in your own teams or in your own businesses, just to make it a bit interactive. But I suspect you know this team. Some of the team is either quietly avoiding the tool and hoping nobody notices. Give us a thumbs up if you're kind of seeing that. Or others are trying to use it, but they're not really too sure how to, and they may be a bit too scared to ask because they don't want to look silly or they don't want to look like they're behind. Or you've got that really excited person who has completely the other way and they've gotten frustrated waiting for the approved tool. So they're using their ChatGPT on their phones, and nobody's signed off on that, by the way, and nobody's tracking what's going into that. But I suspect there's a few in businesses that is embodying that. And the last example is actually the person running the rollout. I don't know how many on the line has heard, like, just sign up to the course and just start using it, like with no context or no reason why, and no idea what it's actually like on the ground in when it's said like that. So no matter which person they are, in the end, nobody in the room is calm and no one's really thinking clearly. And the reason for that is people panic first, right? They panic first and think later. And that's just how we're built. And it's not even the same kind of panic for everyone. Everyone's brain reads this moment through their own personal histories and experiences. So someone who's already lived a really bad redundancy or a bad experience in another role will see this rollout completely different to someone who hasn't, who just sees it as a tool and something that's exciting to play with. So the same tool, the same change, but completely different reactions. So old experiences become triggers, and once someone's triggered, it can be very difficult to kind of bring them back. So the tip is to explain it before you deploy it with transparency, and otherwise, your trust is diminished.
Yeah, it sounds like if AI arrives without a reason, the brain codes it as a threat, not a tool.
Absolutely.
So that's a bit of a worry for a lot of companies out there. So we'll go to who's next on the question. We'll go to Matthew. What happens? Tell us what happens when we don't do this right.
So I guess one of the things that we need to worry about is, where is the human in this in the AI workflow? And so we take the workflow and we design, and we're at the moment designing humans out of it rather than keeping humans in it. And if the humans are in it, then they're basically just a risk mitigation checking function, rather than someone who's actually a tool that's actually helping us to become better. And when we start thinking that way, then we can't get away from replacement. And then everyone in the organization is thinking about replacement. And so I think I'd like to think about this not more of a sort of, human on the loop, but human on the AI, right? And so how do I, and it comes back to Rebecca's comment in the first question, saying, why are we actually doing AI? And if we're doing it in order to create more value to the organization, then we have to enable the human to be able to generate and find that new value for us. And surprisingly, so few organizations at the moment are actually trying to do that. What they're trying to do is what I think is happening, and why we've rushed into it in this way is we've looked at the beauty that AI can do for us, and we've made a decision at the top that this is what we want, and mainly based on the fact of fear of missing out, rather than actually any kind of strategic design. And so now we just sort of take humans, and so we've got workflows in organizations where human is out of the loop, and the risk managers and the chief risk managers are absolutely, going nuts because they can't manage the risk anymore, and they can't actually do that. But on top of that, AI is not going to generate the value for us.
Right.
It has no value add other than creating the space for humans to actually spend the time in value add rather than in administration and doing the tasks that actually stop us from doing it.
Absolutely
Yep.
Absolutely brilliant. 2 minutes on the dot there. So you're basically saying human in the loop as a feature, not a bug.
Yes.
And sort of you're advising the organizations not to design the human out, but rather design the human up.
Yes.
And
yes.
So, which I think, the whole HR accreditation demands that those workflows where human judgment remain as the final arbiter of the whole thing. Human in the loop is the only way to do that. So Danielle, from a data and a transformation perspective, same question: what happens to the workforce trust when AI is deployed without a user-centric design?
Yeah, so I think, I'm going to try and draw Rebecca and Matt's responses into mine to summarize it all for you. But I think, as Rebecca touched on, people responding to it, and then Matt talked about the human in the loop. From my perspective, and maybe to your analogy of the crappy instrument and then blaming the musician for the output, I think we're still looking at the wrong measures for productivity as well when we're introducing AI to organizations, and that's really eroding the trust in the organization as well. So I shudder at the thought of measuring keystrokes as an example, as a sign of productivity, because I think that drives a behavior where you're basically asking them to operate like machines and robots and tap the screen for the sake of it. And I think if you're looking at those kinds of outputs, and that's the kind of data or the scorecard or the KPIs, you're going to get quantity, perhaps. You might get volume, but you're not going to get quality. And so just as a bit of an example, I was chatting with an individual, a leader in financial services the other week, and he had an improvement initiative that he went to the tech team and asked them to think about how they'd build this new solution. And they put it into all their standard estimation tools and came back with a 6-figure sort of estimate and perhaps, number of weeks or months to deliver it. And he challenged it and said, why don't you just bring a group of people together, put them in a room and ask them to really help solve it. And in a week, they were able to design, prototype, and have something ready for experimentation. I think that's a great example of what Matt's talking about in terms of user-centric design. Bring the humans that are closest to the problem to really collaborate and evaluate the problem to be solved, and then draw in the tools and the capabilities that are needed, and focus not on just a volume output KPI, but redesign the KPIs around a new world and a new way of working, which should be around how many problems did we solve and how much value did we create. So that to me is a little bit more heading in the direction of the user-centric design, and I think touches on what Rebecca and Matt have also shared.
Those KPIs need to shift away from tracking tasks, you're right, and towards problem solving. That I just love that. I think build the sandbox, design the human up, and measure the insight, not the keystroke. So very, very cool. So this is the final question. So let me just clean this off and replace the question. It's really hard to do it on this small screen that I've got here. So just forgive me for 1 second. I will put question number 3 onto the stage. Here we go. Now, who's going to get this one first? Question number 3. This is going to go to Matthew. Okay. Yeah. So here's another analogy. So this is really about how can chief, and this is why this whole thing exists, the chief people officers, right? So if you're a chief people officer, you should be watching this, and you should be kept awake by this whole thing, because this is really their responsibility. So how can chief people officers ensure AI tools are adopted enthusiastically rather than resisted? That's the question. Now, the analogy that we're going to give you here is, think of a master tailor who's making a bespoke suit. So they don't just guess your measurements and mail you the jacket. They measure you and they ask how you move. And right now, I think leaders are buying off the rack AI and forcing their teams to squeeze into it. So, and then wondering why everyone hates wearing it. So how can chief people officers really ensure that AI tools are adopted enthusiastically rather than resisted? Matthew, from a HI leadership perspective, what's your answer?
So it's a really good thing. And we don't know the answer to that. And we won't know the answer to that until we do the HI assessment, which is basically 24 questions. I ran it again today with a group of people, and when they looked at the results of that assessment, they were shocked at how not ready they were for AI integration. And so it's only 24 questions. It's not like it's a diagnostic that takes months or something like that. We just ask 24 questions, and if they've answered them truthfully, they will actually find out where it is not working and where the need is for them to intervene in order to make it work. And so what we need as users of AI is to understand is for the executive to understand where our problems are and where our issues are, and what we can and what we can't do, rather than this sort of blanket assumption that we can do all of that. And so therefore, if I'm not being heard, or that information is not being put out there, I get that sense of well, they're not listening to me. I don't know how to do this, and I'm now going to go into self-protection mode and resist it, and I'm not building the enthusiasm for that. And so I need to, when I'm feeling heard, and not agreed with, but at least heard, if you have heard my concerns and you acknowledge them, then I can move forward and enthusiastically embrace what I need to do in order to make a situation work. If I don't feel I'm heard, then I basically will just go into resistance mode.
And that becomes the tax. You hear companies that are laying off people, and everybody else doesn't know what's happening to their jobs. AI's coming in, they think it's taking their jobs, they down tools. So really, if you're not as an organization assessing your AI readiness before rolling out new technology, you're actually going to start in the wrong place. So what you're saying there, Matthew, is that you need a meaningful change. Well, meaningful change starts with the courage to be independently assessed. And I think that's the response there, really, that companies need to look at, is you need to go down and have a look at this from a human perspective. So Danielle, thank you, Matthew. So Danielle, same question to you from a data and transformation reality. So how do chief people officers ensure tools are adopted enthusiastically?
Yeah, so maybe referring back again to your analogy of the tailor never guesses your measurements, but does a thorough sort of measurement and sizing, right? But many CPOs are being handed with the AI equivalent of a garment already made, and it's one size fits all, and then trying to retrofit it into the organization. I think, building on what Matt said, be curious and engage the teams, engage the individuals doing the work, because as Matt referenced, otherwise you'll disenfranchise them. So just to kind of flip it around and make that garment fit the organization, I think it starts with curiosity. So first, ask the teams, what are the things that they have in their own backlog, those continuous improvement ideas that they've been sitting on for ages and no one has heard them about how to change, and that would be where to start. So take some of the drudge away immediately rather than just a top-down landing the tooling on them as a solution. Second would be redesign the governance. So, and I know we reference governance a lot, and there might be many different meanings around governance, but in this example, I'd be talking about the governance that actually frames how work gets done and how it moves through an organization. So the decision making and the delegations, because often you see AI improves the processes or steps in a process, but then there's still a really clunky chain, because whilst you've gotten faster, it's still going to require 4 sign-offs, and the decision making still fits the old way of working, not the new way of working. So it hasn't kept pace. And then for a chief people officer, I think the third opportunity is really how to rethink how people grow in that organization. So if AI is seen to be taking away career opportunities, again, I think that's a risk for disenfranchising our people. However, if it can be made clear to them about how there are still growth opportunities, there are career opportunities, that's, in my mind, where a chief people officer can really make a difference as well, and make sure that AI fits the organization rather than the other way around.
So good. So the first step really is identifying the specific administrative friction that the human, actually wants to remove, rather than imposing it on a top down. Yeah. It's a beautiful way. And, the thing that strikes me here is this is complicated even for me to get my head around. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm in amongst some very smart, intelligent people. I left school at 15, left home at 16, didn't go to school. This is massive imposter syndrome hitting me right now, because I know not only is this whole HI thing important for companies, it's hard to understand. It really is. And I think that what you've got here with you three is all the different ways of looking at it from a business perspective, from a data transformation, from a human, and from a people perspective with Rebecca. And this is just fascinating stuff. I think it really is. So Rebecca, the same question to you. I'm not even on the clock anymore. I've just forgotten all about the clock. I'm just discombobulated because literally my brain is on fire trying to keep up with this. And I just know if I know I've got executives in our community who feel imposter syndrome massively. Just imagine you're in control of this whole adoption of AI thing, and you haven't got a clue where to start. This is the thing, that this conversation is so important to give people just some basic starting points. And so let me ask you the final question, Rebecca. So how do people officers ensure AI tools are adopted enthusiastically? Let's get your response.
Yes, I'll tackle it from a people perspective. And I absolutely agree with both Matthew and Dan in regards to the diagnosis and being really clear on which kind of domains to really focus on for the best outcome. But from a people perspective, to kind of simplify and break it down and maybe give kind of some simple strategies that people can kind of take the overwhelmness out is, first is really to create energy. So really be honest about the strategy and why you're doing this and what it means for their people. That's the trust and the license that they give you to bring AI in at all, is really that building that energy and excitement around it. And you can't force people to be excited, but you can certainly build the conditions on creating excitement. Second is direction. So for me, that's around, again, helping or letting people help shape the strategy and help work out how to actually deliver it and how things get done, whether that's with process redesign or the actual vision statements and how the teams are going to fundamentally progress their business strategy is really critical. It means they have some teeth in the game. And once they have a hand in those decisions, they defend it like it's theirs, right? There's an attachment to it. And the third thing, and I'll keep it just to 3, even though I've got a couple more, but we are out of time, is just around cohesion. So, building cohesion can happen in many different ways, whether it's through, culture or capability uplift or process redesign or governance, all that really, really good stuff. But ultimately, people need to feel safe enough to ask a question, flag a mistake, say they don't get it, and not feel judged. And that is really critical, that leaders learn how to create those safe spaces. So hopefully there's a couple of little techniques that people can take away.
So totally, you can't force enthusiasm, but you can build the conditions for it. That's pretty much that. And be honest about why. I think there's, I think in summary there, they were talking about, audit against the standard, map the actual friction and change the conversation. So that's pretty much it. They're the 3 questions, and pencils down, as they say on the television show. And I think now what we want to do is just ask the audience really which of the 3 questions is the biggest blind spot for them in their organization right now. So I'm going to put on the screen a little poll, and I don't know if you're going to be able to click on the buttons. You're probably not. Matthew, I'm covering up your face again. Hold on. I'm going to move it. Hey, look, I'm going to move it. I covered myself up.
You got a duck, Carl.
Yeah. So I guess the question for everybody who's watching, or if you're watching this on the replay, whatever it is, which of today's 3 questions really is the biggest blind spot in your company? Is it the augmentation versus replacement? Because that's a kind of important one. You can't have your EA just paying all your bills and then go and just blindly sign a check. Is it the trust deficit, or is it the adoption crisis? So I'll leave that on the screen, but you can have a think about it. I don't think you can press the button. I've got to figure out you can press a button.
Maybe they can put A, B, or C in the comments or something.
Yeah, stick an A or something. We've got a comment here from Jotty. It should be mandatory for leaders to learn all of that before. Absolutely spot on. And the problem is it's not at the moment. I think we're big advocates for policy change to mandate that the human intelligence side of this gets built into law. And if you don't do it, you go to jail. I reckon that should be something that needs to happen. But that's pretty much it. Any questions from you guys? I mean, anything you want to share before we hang up and say goodbye for this week?
I just want to say thank you, Marcus, and thank you, Jyoti, for your comments. I was trying to answer them in the comment sheet, but I don't know how to do that yet. So I will answer them on LinkedIn for you. So, but really great things, and I'd love to see your work, Marcus. Right, and stay connected with what you're doing. Beautiful. So next week will be a different session, and it'll be HI module number 3. But I think over the course of the 12. If you're an up-and-coming leader, or if you're a leader, or if you're anybody that has an interest in understanding how to do this properly, watch the sessions from 1 to 12, and the insights that you guys are giving are just incredible. And I think it's remarkable. Eventually, people are going to look at this as the starting point of their successful AI transformations, rather than them. And we're seeing failures everywhere. I mean, I've heard of 80%, 90% failure rates in some companies. And it's not the tech that's failing. The tech's working. It's the other side of it. It's the human stuff that we're talking about here that is the problem. So, ladies and gentlemen, can I just say, where's your gin and where's your wine? Because it's 5 o'clock on Friday. What the hell is going on there?
It's coming up next, Carl.
It's lunchtime here for me, so I just want to say massive thank you, Danielle, Matthew, Rebecca. Enjoy your weekend, and I will end the stream. And talk to you
Thanks,
later.
everyone. Thank you.
Thanks for all the comments, and I'll try to get back to all of them. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.